Well, I was a musician. I was playing in a piano bar, and it was like a rock and roll piano bar. Next to it, there was this massage clinic, and it was kind of a grueling job because it was 7 days a week, 4 hours a night in a room without ventilation when smoking was still allowed. And I would get pretty beat up, and I would go next door, and I made friends with this woman, and I would go to see her pretty regularly, and then she invited me to her home, and there was a guy sitting in the background. He seemed like a little bit of a strange bird, and I got married. I invited her to my wedding. She brought him. Still didn't really meet him. And then the two of them were moving to California and wanted to help putting stuff in storage. So she asked me if I would exchange for a massage. I said, sure. And then she said, well, how about this breathwork my husband does? And I said, not interested. And I wanted the massage. Who doesn't want somebody else doing something for you? That just sounded like something I was going to have to do. So, but I said yes. And my friend and I, Andrew, we both helped them put stuff in storage, and we each did a breath session separate from, and I went over to their house, and he had this bed that went into the wall and like came down, and I laid down on the bed, and then the next thing you know, I was in the most terrifying experience of my life. I couldn't stop talking. I was begging him to stop. I said it was painful. I was just terrified. I even look back, I kind of almost can't really remember what was so terrifying about it, but I was absolutely I was frightened. And then, however I got through it when it was over, I was not, I was an artist, like a musician, so I had spirit in me to like do my own thing and all that, but I was not a formed person by any stretch of the imagination. So I just kind of, honestly, like, I did acid about 3 years before, one time in my life. And I remember when it was over, I sat on the couch for like a week trying to figure out what had happened to me. Never did it again, but it was, kind of life-changing. And the breath was a little bit like that. Like, what was that? And then Andrew, I said, like, do you think we could do this on our own? And he said, yeah, I think they said it was fine. Which he never even talked to them. They had moved to California. So I just got up every morning and decided I was just going to do this on my own. And that's its own story. But then when they went to California and I got a letter about a training, I was like, I'm going to that. So
what do you think the internal process was?
It's interesting now being in my 50s and working and mentoring with people who are younger in their 20s, like around the time or even before the age I was when I started, and see how you have all this energy and passion for something, but nothing's really that clear, and it just feels like this uphill road in some way. And you make all these choices to do things, but there is a road for me, there was a road that wanted to happen, a best life, a best opportunity. And I had always wanted to be a musician, and only nothing but since I was 5. But I can look back now and go, my path was never about performance. Like it was always about transformation and healing, always. Every turn in every event that's ever happened to me was always turning my road back into myself and also into a path where I was going to help other people. I can pick any moment, any age in my life, and that was the case. And at the time that I was doing, that I was a musician and I was trying to get a record deal, what I was doing was recording people in my studio, and they would come in with their dreams and their ideas, and I could play a lot of instruments, and I would help them try to make their dreams come true. But what I was always aware was that I was a psychologist in the room, and I was dealing with people's process and their upsets and their self-worth and their relationship to themselves and their own gap between their dreams that they wanted and where they stood, and where I was in between where they started and where they ended. And even when I was in front of people, like at the time that I played at the piano bar, you know, there was like a grand piano in this room, and it was a pub. Like the woman who owned it was English, and it was just like an English pub in Toronto and Canada. And people just drank too much, and I was their monkey, you know, like, but I always loved, you know, the first hour, like before things started, you know, or after the bar was closing. But it was always that point where people were drinking and wanted to sing along or like getting out of control that I didn't feel safe, but I didn't really like it. And I had little kind of fans and things. And eventually part of the reason why I got fired from that job, was that I was sending people home because I was like, you shouldn't be here. So even when I was playing, I was always kind of in relationship to where they were at, not where I was at. And so my point is that the breathwork found me because it wasn't meant to, like the stress of trying to be in the music business. In a business when I was not an addict, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, like I was just never really built for punishing abuse on the body. So like I wasn't going to get in a van and sleep on the floor of somebody's house and then go to the next one. I just was too sensitive. So I kept pushing for my dream, but the breathworks, without me even knowing when I did it, in some way gave me an outlet that was appropriate for me, that could allow me to still be involved in creative arts, because I think breathwork is a creative art, and music, because music's such a big part of the breathwork, and help people feel better about who they are. Like it's only been there my whole life.